Okay, welcome everybody to the plant-based panel, and I hope we've got lots of people joining us today. For some of you may already know that this event was originally planned for Christchurch right before we went into lockdown, and sadly we had to cancel the physical event. So that may explain why all of our panelists are from Christchurch. But the silver lining of cancelling that event meant that we could recreate it online and more people could join and benefit from the expertise of our amazing panel members that are here today. So without further ado, I will introduce our wonderful panel, starting with the fabulous Yolanda. Hello, Yolanda. So you are the president of the Christchurch Vegan Society, which is an amazing thing for anybody in Christchurch. So Yolanda's been on the vegan scene for an incredibly long time. You've been vegan forever and raised 4 vegan kids from birth to adulthood, and they're all doing incredibly well. Yolanda is a perfect person to ask about being vegan in the community. If you're a new vegan and you want to connect with other vegans, Yolanda is your person. Yolanda's also organised some absolutely amazing vegan events here in Christchurch and elsewhere. The amazing Vegan Expo here in Christchurch, as well as the Vegan Camp in Hanmer Springs, and lots of other types of vegan events. So welcome, Yolanda.
Kia ora, thank you. I've got the t-shirt to show that I've been there, done that.
You have to. Our next panel member is Tom. Now, Tom is the co-owner and chef of Green Dinner Table, and Green Dinner Table is a plant-based food box. It's a wonderful thing. I have tried it myself. It's a perfect thing for new vegans. If you don't know how to cook vegan food and you don't know where to start and you need recipes. Tom's been a chef all around the world, so if you've got any questions directly relating to vegan cooking or owning a vegan business or starting a vegan business, then Tom is your guy. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks for having me.
Our next panelist is Mel. Now, Mel has also been vegan forever. 20 years, Mel? Yep. Roughly. And Mel is an amazing ultra athlete. She's done marathons and ultra marathons, and you also play hockey for Canterbury, I believe.
Yep. The Masters team.
Wow. Okay. If you've got any questions about fueling your body on a plant-based diet, especially for some really big vegan big events like ultra marathons, then Mel would be a great person to talk to. Welcome, Mel.
Hi, everybody.
Okay. And next to Mel is Jake. Now, Jake is a lifelong vegan. So you've been vegan since birth. And so you have grown up as a vegan, you've been to school as a vegan, and you're now a vegan teenager. You're 14, is that right? So if you've got any questions about what it's like to be a vegan kid growing up in New Zealand or a vegan teen and answering all of those tricky questions at school and wherever you may be, then Jake is the perfect person to answer those questions for you. All right, so our next panelist is Mordecai. And Mordecai is all the way from Malawi originally, but he's been in New Zealand for 9 years now, I believe, and vegan for 6 of those years. So Mordecai is a long distance runner. So if you've got any questions about fueling your body for very long distance runs, then Mordecai is your guy. He also does some really awesome volunteer work in the community with young people as well. So welcome, Mordecai.
Kia ora.
Okay, and Kylie. Kylie actually works for SAFE. Kylie is the Eat Kind program coordinator. And Kylie has a Bachelor of Science in Food Science, specializing in nutrition. So if you've got any tricky questions about nutrition, B12, where do you get your protein? Kylie's a good person to talk to. And Kylie is also an ultra athlete. So we've got a few amazingly fit people in our panel today, and I am not one of them. And Kylie is a great person to talk to if you've got any questions about being both gluten-free and vegan. So welcome, Kylie.
Thank you.
And last but not least, I will introduce myself. I'm Laura. I'm the National Volunteer Coordinator for SAFE, and I've just recently joined the Eat Kind team as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions about SAFE's Eat Kind programme, our plant-based challenge, and all of our free resources for new vegans. I'm also a self-confessed, I won't say junk food, that's a negative word, let's say a comfort food specialist. If you've got any questions about what's the best vegan chocolate, chips, pies, where to get the best vegan burger, I'd be very happy to answer those questions for you as well. All right, so that is our panel, and we may as well get stuck into some of the questions that have been coming in over the last few weeks. And I think we'll kick it off with probably the most commonly asked question for new vegans particularly, and that is, where do vegans get their protein? It may seem like an obvious one, but it's probably the most common question. And I'm going to direct this to Kylie.
Cool. Yes, definitely something I get asked a lot, and thankfully it's super easy to answer because plant foods are abundant in protein. So eating plenty of whole grains, legumes, beans, veggies, nuts and seeds, these are all really great sources of protein, really healthy sources too. Yeah.
Wonderful. And so you're not likely to go short on protein on a plant-based diet?
Definitely not. I think it's pretty hard to become protein deficient. And the best thing about getting your protein via plant foods, whole-based plant foods, means you're also getting a whole bunch of other great nutrients along with it. So these same foods, whole grains, legumes, beans, veggies, nuts and seeds, are also really high in protein, really good sources of calcium and phytonutrients and antioxidants, all these really, really beneficial nutrients for our bodies.
So you'd have to try really hard to not get enough protein.
Pretty much.
On a plant-based diet. Good to know, and good to get that one out the way. We've also, while I'm talking to you, Kylie, we also get a lot of questions about B12. So probably good to tackle that at the beginning as well.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's really a good topic to talk about. I think it's really important that we make sure we get enough B12, and that probably goes for any diet, any person who's focusing on what nutrients they need. And thankfully it's really simple. So if you're vegan, it's probably a really good idea. In fact, it's a good idea to make sure you're having a supplement and taking a daily supplement, and that's something you can easily pick up on supermarket shelves or pharmacy shelves. And that just is because of the modern sanitation that goes along with the way that we produce and process our foods these days. So B12 is produced by bacteria in the soil, and obviously we clean our veggies and foods now, so there's no more soil in our foods for us to be able to get those nutrients that way. But yeah, it's super easy to get a supplement, and also there's other foods that are fortified with B12. Lots of the plant, like nut milks, fortified cereals, and nutritional yeast, which is something I use a lot to make vegan cheese. So yeah.
And kiwi Marmite, doesn't that have B12?
Oh yes, I forgot about Marmite. Yes, it's not everyone's favourite, but I know Mel likes it. I do too.
I love it.
I do too. Thanks, Kylie. Thank you for clearing that up. I have a question for Mel, and that is, how do you fuel your body for an ultra marathon or a marathon?
Yeah, okay. So you can imagine that kind of a distance is quite demanding on your body. So in the lead up to those kind of long events, in the lead up to the events, you kind of have carbohydrate high content foods in the days leading up to it. And then actually during the race, which is most important, your body can only really process simple carbohydrates. So for mega long run, or so prior to a big long run in the hills or something, I'd have well, typically, I know this sounds a bit weird, but I might have my special is banana. You'll like this, Yolanda. Banana on Marmite, on peanut butter, on a bagel.
I do like that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, so that's kind of a nice little morning snack during the race. So it's very common for me in an ultra marathon. Like, so I did this on Kepler, did this in Comrades in South Africa. Is I eat a lot of potatoes in long events. So like all these gels are great little packages that you can get for shorter races, but for longer races you have to have some real food. And good real food is things like salted potatoes and things that your body can easily digest and turn into energy to keep you going for many hours.
Good to be given permission to eat more potatoes.
I'll just say one other thing as well is after a long run, it's really good. You've got about a half-hour window to fuel yourself, which will speed up your recovery, and that's where protein is really important. So yeah, I might have like a, something with peanut butter in, or a smoothie or something.
Making me hungry. Wow. I liked all of those things you said, but I don't know about eating them all at the same time, Mel.
Don't knock it till you tried it.
Okay, well, that's really good to know. We had a very important question for Jake, and that was, what was it like growing up as a vegan kid, being a vegan teenager, and how do you answer those tricky questions that people throw at you?
Yeah, well, at the start it was kind of like they'd ask you these really weird questions and you had no idea how to answer them. But then, like, as time goes on, they like realize that it's actually pretty normal once they get to know it. Because like at primary school, they have no idea what a vegan is because they've just grown up in their homes. Like, they're not really out and about. But then as you get older, they realize that it's actually a really big thing. A lot of people are vegan. And over time, you end up having this like huge stack of like responses to all these weird questions. So you get better. At the start, it's a lot harder, and then you go home, you figure out that question, and then someone else asks you that question. You have a good response. So
that's awesome. So what advice would you have to someone around your age who was thinking about going vegan and was worried about how their classmates or friends might treat them?
Well, if they stop being good friends because you're vegan, then they're not good friends, are they? I mean, like, for who you are, I mean, they're not really friends, are they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a very logical way of thinking about it. Thank you, Jake. Okay, we have a question for Tom, and that was, what gave you the idea for Green Dinner Table, and how did you go about setting up your vegan business?
Well, I think it really started, my original business partner's dad had quadruple bypass surgery, and they did a lot of research into what how they were going to reverse the disease and what they wanted to do, and they really wanted to start eating plant-based, but they had no way of doing it. They couldn't figure out how to do it. They took away the meat and they were left with the 3 veg, and they said, this is horrible, we can't do this. And I've always really liked introducing people and changing their opinions on vegetables. Maybe they think they hate, everyone thinks they hate Brussels sprouts or asparagus or tofu. So I've always enjoyed cooking it for people and letting them try it and finding out that it's actually really delicious. And that was kind of just the birth of it. And then we just kind of ran with it. From there, we found a beautiful space in the British Hotel in Littleton and did that up, and just kind of started really small. And I don't know, it was a lot of figuring it out as we went.
So for those who don't know about the Green Dinner Table, would you say that is this a fair description, Tom, that it's like a vegan version of a My Food Bag?
Yep, we wouldn't say My Food Bag, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, they did My Food Bag did a great job of kind of introducing the concept to people.
Yeah.
We don't really have to explain the concept, but unlike My Food Bag, we make a lot more stuff ourselves. Initially, it was just because the stuff wasn't available. You couldn't really buy aiolis and all the kimchis we make and all the pickles just weren't available. Now you probably could outsource them. There are people making them now, but 4 years ago when we started, so we just kind of started making everything out of necessity.
So I understand that you've recently branched out into Wellington and more recently Auckland, is that right?
Yeah, yep. We started shipping to Wellington last year, and then just about a month ago we started shipping to Auckland as well. So it's pretty exciting.
Such a great thing for a new vegan who has no idea what to cook. You've got all the tools and the ingredients.
Yeah, it's really easy. I mean, they get you get everything you need, and the recipes are pretty simple to follow, and it's a good way to expand your knowledge of vegan dishes. We repeat items occasionally, but you won't be eating anything for at least a month, probably more like 6 weeks. So it's a huge variety of meals.
That's awesome. And again, making me hungry. I have tried the green dinner table meals, and absolutely everything I've had has been absolutely outstanding. So can't recommend it enough.
Jake cooks them regularly.
Oh, cool.
And Jake and Mel just had green dinner table for their dinner.
What did you have tonight?
Amazing.
Jake polished his off.
Quickly before we went live.
Good.
The one thing I will say about the green dinner table as well is being vegan, you have a lot of perishable foods, and so I think prior to I've been vegan for over 20 years, but we use the green dinner table because we've actually found we have far less food waste. Would normally have so much perishable food that we'd get through, and it's hard to get it just right in terms of the portion sizes for the meals. So that's another advantage of it.
Thank you, Mel. I have a question for Yolanda. So what advice would you have for parents bringing up vegan kids?
I think it's really important that parents find other parents like them. I mean, nobody can be the only vegan in the village. And so you need to hook up with other vegans doing the same thing, because we're all hearing the same. Well, it can be not always negative. It can be positive. Just people interested and puzzled. And it's like coming out as gay. You're always coming out as a vegan. You're always explaining yourself. You're always justifying yourself. It gets very wearying. And it's really nice if you know other vegan families, because then you can get together. Like in Christchurch for many years, we had veggie families play group, and the kids could get together. We'd have a big afternoon tea. Everything was vegan. And we'd say to the kids, you don't have to ask, which they were like, what? We don't have to ask what's in the food? And I remember you coming along to some of those, Jake. And so I think it's always about finding your community, finding others like you, because I think, when I think of when people are most vulnerable in their lives as vegans, I think it's when they're young, and I think it's when they're old. So I think the elderly are very vulnerable as vegans because they're often not cared for or catered for. But I think the young as well, because they have to put up with, like as Jake was saying, there's a lot of questions. A lot of vegan kids do get bullied because they're different. And even for the parents, you're usually the only person in your coffee group who's vegan, raising your children that way. And so I just say you've got to meet others like you. So luckily now we have online groups, but nothing better than meeting in real life as well.
A question that just came through again for you, Yolanda, is are there any foods that your kids just would not eat growing up?
Well, if you'd met my children, you would know, dear question asker, my children are the fussiest eaters you have ever met. I mean, I'm not joking when I say my youngest has had the same dinner every day for 10 years. I'm not joking. He literally has had the same dinner every day for 10 years, and the others were all the same. And unfortunately, I was the same myself. So what was the question? I was just overwhelmed by the fact that people think, they don't want to eat anything. But the good thing is, I mean, apparently our family are super tasters, and we can taste like absolutely everything, which makes them super, super fussy. And so I just had to, I mean, it'd be easy for me to list the things they did eat. So just assume they ate no other foods, but they still were raised to be really healthy vegans. They were healthy. It's just that they were so boring that I just had to learn to love it. Like every night I think, yay, I don't have to think what I'm cooking for dinner. It's the same thing I've cooked for 10 years. So I just looked on the bright side of it. And I always knew that when they got to be adults, that they would eat widely, and that's exactly what happened. In fact, one of them's cross with me now and says, Mum, why didn't you just force me to eat food, because it's really good? And I'm like, I did try and force you. So what I'm saying is, what I learned from my children is that you can be vegan all your life and you can be super fussy and you can still be fit and healthy.
That is good to hear. And just going back briefly to what you were saying before about the importance of vegan community, that's a huge part of what the Christchurch Vegan Society is, isn't it?
Yeah. And so I always say it's one thing to help people go vegan, it's another thing to help them stay vegan. And because I've been vegan for over 30 years, you can imagine I've seen a lot of people become vegan and stop being vegan. And often the reason it is because I think of their isolation. You're the only vegan at work, you're the only vegan in your family, you're the only vegan in your circle of friends. And that is very wearying, believe me, as I said, to be saying the same things again and again. So I guess our thinking was, if we created a community and, I looked at other groups who were minorities, like say maybe a religious group, and what do? They always have these moments where they can come together where they're totally the norm and they don't have to explain where they get their protein from or anything like that. So I thought we need to have places where vegans can come together, like vegan camp or other events, and not have to explain anything. And I think if you can have those moments, then you're kind of fortified to go out into the world and be the only vegan. I mean, now it's easy, we have social media, but social media is still not the same as meeting in real life, and that's why we have vegan camp, where you can go and you're not allowed to ask anyone where they get their protein from. That's like one of the banned questions. You just go and there's a chef and you just eat, because you can't be the only one like you and be vegan long term very easily. Very few people can do that.
That's really good advice, Yolanda. And so I'd say that to anybody, wherever you are, connect with the local vegan groups. There will be one. It may be on Facebook, you may have to search for it, but find your tribe and share recipes, support each other. Good advice, Yolanda.
Well, make your own group. Don't wait. Like people are always saying, how come in Christchurch you've got all these things happening? And that's because we just blinging pulled finger, Mel and Mordecai. We just said, we're bloody having it and we're bloody doing it. We're not standing around waiting for some uber vegan to come along and get it sorted. And that's what I'd say about, and Whangarei has a vegan expo. And people say, oh, why can't they have it in Auckland? It's because people in Whangarei pulled finger and got it together. Don't wait for it to happen. Be the change you want to be, make it happen. And the other thing I say to vegans is, a lot of vegans will say to me, oh, but I don't need that. Like, I'm really strong in my veganism. And I'll say, well, what about thinking about others? What about creating these things so that the people who need that support have you as that anchor, so that the vulnerable people in our beautiful vegan community have the people who've been doing these things and doing them for a long time to go to and to talk to. But you can't do that if you're thinking, oh, I'm fine. You've got to be thinking about other people all the time. And the perfect example of that was after the earthquakes, when people were like flooding Christchurch with food. Do you think they had any vegan food? No. And so the local, our organisation, we organised vegan baking to be sent from vegans all around New Zealand to Christchurch, and we had people on bicycles biking all over the city delivering baking to vegans, and people were sending like organic fruit and tofu and rescue remedy and all these things. We like flooding to Christchurch, and then we would distribute it. Well, that would never have happened probably in many other places because there was no organisation. So I just think vegans need to get organised, because who is speaking for us if we're not speaking for us?
Absolutely. Good point, Yolanda. Thank you for that. Okay, we have a question for Mordecai. What was it like growing up in Malawi? What's the typical diet in Malawi? And what's it like when you visit Malawi as a vegan now?
Oh, good question. I would say it's probably a lot meat and dairy are not as prevalent as they are in New Zealand. So actually for me, transitioning to a vegan diet was probably not that difficult for me, because I think dairy wasn't so prevalent in my life. I think the first time I ever had cheese, I was 12 years old.
Wow.
So it made it a fairly easy enough transition. Every time I go back, it's pretty easy to eat vegan. The only challenges come if you're going to town and you're eating out, that's where it's probably a little bit harder. But most, I'd say, probably about 80% of the population sort of live in self-sustaining communities where you grow most of the food, and meat makes up a much smaller portion of your diet in comparison to New Zealand anyway.
Interesting. And so were you a long distance runner before becoming vegan, or has that happened since you became vegan?
No, no, I wasn't actually. I think the two probably overlapped a little bit. I initially decided to go vegan after listening to this amazing podcast by Rich Roll.
Oh yes.
If you're keen on learning a little bit more about living a plant-based lifestyle, and I'd highly recommend that podcast. And it just made me curious about the potential that the human body has and how much further you can push yourself. And this guy did some pretty amazing things on a plant-based diet. So I'd gotten into running, and then once I got into him, I transitioned to a plant-based diet and just started pushing further and further, and then the rest is history, I guess.
So what's an average number of Ks that you might clock up on a weekend?
On a weekend, well, not a lot during lockdown, but it'll probably be around 30 or 40, depending on how keen Mel and Kylie are.
You've got your vegan running buddies all helping to motivate you.
We go running together on a Friday morning. Mordecai is nicely modelling our singlet that we wear on a Friday morning when we run around Hagley. So we'll redo it this Friday.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So a question for Mel. What is your personal opinion on plant-based meats? Are some better than others? Are they a good thing or a bad thing? What do you think?
Well, I think if you're newly vegan and you're looking for an alternative to something like meat sausages, you can just buy some veggie sausages and switch in sort of processed alternative. Some people talk about the flavour. At the moment, there's a bit of publicity around meats, that's plant-based patties and burgers that taste like animal meat. So I think there's a place for them. I found that I've kind of moved away from them more towards whole food diet. So because we have the green dinner table, and so that's like most of our meals kind of catered for. But I think from a convenience, it's quick and it's easy. They're not all the same. Some are more expensive than others, and also there are different degrees of processing. So what some people might call tofu a processed food product, which doesn't actually entail much. But then there are other highly processed alternatives. I think there's pretty much something for everyone if you're interested. There can be, if you're trying to go vegan on a budget, then sometimes the processed meat alternatives can be a bit more expensive.
So not for everyone, but a great thing for a new vegan to simply swap out a meat. Also, if you're really busy, like sometimes for us at the weekend, all the family, we all do sport. So, there'll be cricket or hockey or something going on. And, to have a few things in the freezer that, you can just rustle up quite quickly for a convenience meal, serves its purpose sometimes.
Like when you go into your friend's house or something and they don't know what to cook for you.
Disappeared.
When they don't know what to cook for you, like you can just bring along like a patty. They're like, oh, okay, we'll just cook that.
We do. So for children, so sometimes you can imagine we've been to a lot of children's birthday parties. Jake's maybe been invited to a party where the food isn't all vegan. So typically he'll take food along, and one of the things he might do, he might take along sausage rolls. So we might get some of the I don't know if I'm allowed to say the brand, Bean Supreme sausage rolls, like the rosemary and herby kind of ones, and just roll them in pastry and just make little sausage rolls, bake them up, and they're just gone in seconds at any party.
Yeah, it kind of does. It's kind of annoying because you don't get any more vegan food because I ate all of it.
Yeah, so it's for like party type food as well. You can do something quickly and easy without too much inconvenience.
Thank you, Mel. And a question that just came in is back to Mordecai. Mordecai, where did you get your Game Changers singlet?
Oh, good question. I'm gonna have to drop a link in the comments after the video is posted.
Yeah, just Red Bubble, wasn't it? We got them from.
Yeah.
Bubble.
So I'm sure we can post a link in the comments afterwards.
Yeah, so you all different colours and a few different designs.
We all need one for our next panel meeting. Then we can all be matching.
Mordecai chose the design.
I love it.
I thought this was the uniform today.
We just said you choose it, we'll follow.
Thank you. Another question that came in is for Tom. They really want to try plant-based, but they hate beans. Are they going to have to just eat beans and get used to beans for every meal?
Absolutely not, but beans are pretty great, so we can probably change your opinion on beans. We have a heap of different dishes with beans. We've got obviously the Mexican dishes, like nacho wedges, kind of coriander, all those kind of spices. Then we can puree them with like tahini and make a hummus kind of thing with roasted vegetables. Or we've got soups with beans in them, bilotti bean, tomato soup. So yeah, I think, like I said before, I reckon that you can change your opinion on beans. You should like beans. They're good, but definitely not. I mean, there's so much variety of food out there. If you don't like beans, maybe you could try lentils or another pulse or grain. But no, I reckon just eat beans. Beans are good.
Embrace the beans and embrace the Brussels sprouts as well. You just haven't had them green dinner table.
I just had Brussels sprouts last night for the first time. They weren't on green dinner table menu. They're so good, Brussels sprouts.
Well, there you go. Maybe Tom can convert people who aren't into beans. Thank you, Tom. Another question we had is actually for Kylie. Is it really hard being gluten-free and vegan?
Oh, yeah. Easier than you'd think. So my partner and I are both vegan, and he is gluten intolerant. And yeah, I by default, I just make all my meals vegan and gluten-free, and it's way more simple than you'd think. There's so many gluten-free products out there. So we have a lot of rice, a lot of quinoa, which is all gluten-free. But for pastas, there's some really great like gluten-free pastas, like lentil ones. So many different kinds of gluten-free pastas, or rice noodles, gluten-free breads and wraps and pizza bases, like you name it. It's easier than you'd think. And even now, I've noticed going out for meals now, often when you go to choose the vegan option or vegan options now, often that's paired with being gluten-free as well. So yeah, that's easier and easier.
That's true, actually, isn't it? They've kind of lumped them together, but it does make it easier for the gluten-free vegan to be able to find food at a cafe or...
Yeah, we have a gluten-free box now, and there are so many great gluten-free products out there now that it's pretty simple to sub everything out.
Yeah.
So many people are gluten-free, so it's good to know. And it's any extra hurdles like that when you're thinking about going vegan, could potentially put you off. Excuse me, I've lost my voice completely. You wouldn't want to be put off by thinking that it was going to be too hard, when actually it's quite the opposite. Thank you for that, Kylie. That was great. Well, actually, another question for Kylie, while we are talking to you, is about iron and iron deficiencies. And are you going to become iron deficient if you stop eating red meat?
Definitely not. So just like I was talking about with getting your protein, getting your iron, eating plenty of dark leafy green vegetables, beans, things like tofu, all really great sources of iron, nuts and seeds too. yeah, it's really just making sure you're getting plenty of whole plant-based foods. Yeah, so it's I've never had any issues with being iron deficient since being vegan, and I don't think it's all very common at all. I think it's just a bit of one of those myths, just like protein, really.
Can I add something in there about the iron? The main thing about iron on a vegan diet is you must make sure you're having some kind of vitamin C with your meal. So that really helps the absorption of the iron. And if people want more information, the Christchurch Vegan Society's got a whole range of leaflets. There's one about iron, protein, B12, calcium. You can download them for free from our website. But I always say to my children that iron and vitamin C, like they are hand in hand. So because, as we all know, my kids are fussy eaters, every meal I gave them, they had to start with a small plate of fruit, and then it was like tick box, vitamin C out of the way. Because as Kylie says, it's not actually hard to get iron. Iron is in lots of food, but it's the absorption of iron. And vegans and non-vegans, the research has shown that vegan and vegetarians are at no higher risk of anemia than vegans and vegetarians. And you can be a vegan and be anemic, but you can be a meat eater and be anemic. It's about your absorption. But like Heidi, I've been vegetarian almost 40 years. I've never been anemic, and I've had children, so that's usually the highest risk. So it's just about eating well.
Thanks, Yolanda. I've actually got another question for you, Yolanda. What is your go-to meal to cook for a meat eater who is very skeptical about vegan food?
Yeah, well, I try not to do meat substitutes when I'm working with meat eaters, because then there's always that comparison thing. But I think, like Tom was saying, I'm a great believer in beans, and I would, when I became a vegan, of course, I just thought that's what we ate, so I ate them in abundance. And so I have a lot of really good bean recipes, but probably my favorite would be do something Mexican, like an enchilada or taco tortilla, some guacamole, some cashew, sour cream, and then beautiful salsa, big lovely salad, and then your beans, which really give a lot of satiety. Because I think that's the problem when some people go vegan, they think it's all about the vegetables and they forget about, I always say I have meat with every meal, which means I have my nuts or my beans or something that gives me that satiety that keeps me going for longer. So that'd be my number one. And those recipe books you can get now, like those Revive cookbooks, I always recommend these to everyone, because there's 7 of them. Every dish in here is going to work, and and it's all very unprocessed, and they use lots of beans in really good ways as well.
Absolutely, those cookbooks are my favourite.
Yeah,
I've actually got a copy of the latest one to give away, so everyone who signs up for our 6-week plant-based challenge during Meat-Free May, which is of course now, it goes in the draw to win the latest Revive cookbook, and it's got 13 vegan cheese recipes in it, so it's particularly exciting. Speaking of cheese is something, again, it's almost up there with the where do you get your protein. How am I going to live without cheese? I'm a huge fan of cheese, but who is the biggest fan of cheese who may like to answer this question? I know you do, Kylie.
I do.
There's some cheese in the office sometimes. So Kylie, what do you think about vegan cheeses, and what would be your recommendations for best vegan cheeses to try?
I definitely think, just like the plant-based meat alternatives, you've got to try some just to work out which is your favorite. But there is just more and more amazing vegan cheeses that you're not going to be missing out these days. And you can I'm excited to try the ones in their new Revive cookbook, but there are some really great recipes just online to make your own as well. So not sure if anyone else has any suggestions on their favorites.
I really like the is it Savor ones based out of Auckland. They're pretty expensive, but they're pretty delicious. And we use them pretty sparingly at Green Dinner Table. We use the feta, angel food feta, every now and again, which I think is really good, but we marinate it, we cut it all up and add a whole lot more to it to really make it delicious. And I like them whenever I make pizzas at home for the kids and stuff, we always put a little bit of angel food mozzarella and stuff on it. They'll love that. Don't want to feel like they're missing out when everyone else is makes their pizza look the same as everyone else's.
Absolutely, and there are so many. It's great having Angel Food and Zenzo, both Kiwi brands and flavour. And here in
Another brand
Christchurch, oh
Sorry,
sorry,
another brand is Diva Plant Cheese.
I was just going to mention that.
And that one is nut free as well. So it's made from kumara, and that's from Christchurch, but I think delivers nationally as well.
They do. I can confirm. I have been spending the money that I've been saving on petrol in lockdown on vegan cheese boxes from Diva. So I can personally recommend them. So many different types. So as a new vegan, I think if you try the wrong cheese, you may get the impression that all vegan cheese is bad. And there are some not so great vegan cheeses out there. So going back to what Kylie was saying, just try them all. And it was one of the reasons why we used to have these cheese tasting events, which we may resurrect, because new vegans, it's your opportunity to come along and taste all of the vegan cheeses that are available in New Zealand and find your favourites before you waste a lot of money buying cheeses that you don't necessarily like. But things have got easier for us cheese lovers, haven't they? Especially recently, you know, with all of the new plant-based meats and all of the new cheeses all competing, we've never had it so easy. So something that people may be interested in as new vegans, when you've got a head full of questions and you have no idea what to eat and what to cook, is what is our plant-based challenge and how can it help you? So Safe's Eat Kind Plant-Based Challenge, it's a series of emails over a 6-week period that pretty much set you up as a new vegan with everything you need to know. So from, you know, easy food swaps, things that you can go to a New Zealand supermarket and buy and just swap out and make what you've always made, right through to, you know, which takeaways have got great vegan options, what it's like answering questions, you know, answering people's questions about the fact that you've gone vegan. It kind of covers everything. And at the end of that 6 weeks, we sort of hope that you're armed with lots of really, really awesome knowledge that will make your life easier as a new plant-based eater. So the plant-based challenge is completely free. And like I was saying before, if you register for it during the meat-free May, you may be the lucky winner of the latest Revive cookbook. So you can just, we will post the link in the comments at the end, and also about Green Dinner Table and Christchurch Vegan Society and where to get Mordecai's amazing singlet from, and anything else that we've talked about today that people might want to know more about. So is there anything that anybody would like to just elaborate on that we've talked about already, or talk about a question that they get asked a lot as a vegan?
Where'd you go out to eat if you're vegan? So this is probably, my answer is probably more relative to Christchurch. So a few vegan businesses out there are the Portershed Cafe, which has got an amazing selection of everything and anything that you can ask for. We've also got Greater Goods Deli, which does amazing plant meats, and they also have packages that you can order online as well. And we've also got Barefoot Eatery on Wall Street, which I believe is gluten-free as well, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're gluten-free, plant-based, go-to spot. And we've also got Raw Sugar on Manchester Street, amazing vegan food there as well. The Lotus Hut in St. Asaph Street, also a lot of great vegan options. Am I missing anything there, Yolanda?
The
No?
Welcome, the
Origin, yeah.
Yeah.
So many.
The Shroom Room. I mean, Christchurch is New Zealand's vegan capital, and we've got the restaurants to prove it.
Yes. So
But the other thing, what about using the Happy Cow app? And I'm always amazed when I meet vegans who don't have that app on their phone, because you can go anywhere in the world and like turn on your app and it will tell you how many paces away you are from, if not a vegan cafe, maybe a non-vegan cafe that has really good options. And people all around the world put photos and they put the menus and reviews, and it's very current. So that's like when my children left home, the first thing I did is said goodbye, and then the second thing I said, and here's $10 for your app, off you go. It was like the mother pig sending the 3 pigs out into the world. You've got your app, off you go. And they all survived. So I think that Happy Cow app, every vegan should have it, and everyone should be active on it. Like if you're eating somewhere, take a photo, load it to the app instantly, so other vegans can benefit from what you just ate. And that's also good for yourself, because later, like a year later, I might come back to that place and I think, God, what did I have last time? What did I think? I look to see which photos I took on the app. I think, oh yeah, that was really good. I'll have that. So it's almost like a record for myself of what I liked and where I've been. So I highly recommend the Happy Cow app.
Jake, did you want to say something about our travels?
Yes, vegan traveling. Happy Cow is amazing. So Dad can just give it to me or Lee, my little brother, and we would just look on, like, we'd look where the clusters of vegan cafes and places to eat were, and then we'd go book our hotel based on where they were close to. So then vegan traveling isn't hard if you're like 10 steps away from a vegan food. So
Like a passport, do you mention about that?
Oh yeah, there's a vegan passport app, and Dad has like the actual vegan passport, and he's had that for ages, and it's really good if you are trying to tell someone who doesn't speak your language what you can and can't eat. So it has the definition of being a vegan, and you can translate that into different languages, and then it has like pictures of what you can and can't eat. So you say like no cow, no none of this, and it's like, it can be frustrating sometimes, but it's, you get the hang of it.
That sounds so useful, because it's really tricky when you're on holiday and you don't speak the language and you don't know what you're eating, and you need to make sure that you're not eating animal products. So what's the name of that app again? Vegan Passport.
Yes,
Vegan
Vegan Passport.
Passport.
I can share a link with you. It's funny because we've been to some very remote places in remote countries, in Tibet and in China and other places. And sometimes, they understand because, you have this passport with you, and last resort is the pictures. And they think it's hilarious, and they trying to translate back to you, well, what do you eat? And so it's quite, we made some really nice connections with people all over the world when, they understood what we eat, and then they catered for us, and we were happy, they were happy, and thought we were a bit unusual. But yeah, we never went without. And it is a good point Jake said about, before you go to a particular place, to just have a look around where you might eat, and then if there's accommodation in that area, then everything's within walking distance, so that can be quite handy. So any questions on travel? We do a lot of traveling.
Yeah, like we've been to some really remote places, and I was lucky enough to go to Niagara Falls with Dad during the winter. So during the winter, everything's shut down. So like most of the theme parks and everything are closed, and like the big malls are closed. So a lot of the places I could say, can we make that vegan, weren't open. So strangely enough, that was probably the hardest place to find vegan food, because most of it was shut. But
Interesting.
we did find a good curry place, but we had to walk a little while for it. So
there's one thing for new vegans that I would recommend as well. We still do it now where we can, like traveling or whatever, is to just like attend a cookery course, whether it's a workshop, like I think, the various different organizations and groups of people that run workshops that you can just turn up to and get an idea of how to cook vegan. That can be quite enlightening if you're at a bit of a loss as to what to cook.
Good advice, thank you, Mel and Jake. We have another question for Tom, and that question is, if there was one plant-based food that you think everybody should try once, what would that be?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. One individual food.
Yeah. Or maybe pick two.
Okay, so well, today at work we were talking about mushrooms. This is a pretty fancy one. No one's gonna eat this. But if you get the chance, there's these great mushrooms which we used to get in Toronto when I worked there, called chanterelles. You can get them here, and I think that's probably one of the nicest vegetables you can eat. It's like kind of has a kind of apricot-y taste, and it's buttery, and it's really, really good. But that's ridiculous because that's really hard to find. If I was going to cook a meal for someone, probably I would get people to try jackfruit. Everyone loves jackfruit who tries it. It's so versatile. It picks up flavor really well. It's got that really nice kind of meaty bite that people love. And people can relate to it, and yeah, they can kind of visualize it in what they're eating. So if we do a souvlaki with it that I think everyone loves, you have tzatziki and the nice bread and all the vegetables in there. Yeah.
I second that.
And Brussels sprouts.
Oh yeah, and beans. Embrace the beans. Somebody just asked, what's my favourite food? I think somebody wants to know about comfort food. This is a terrible thing to admit, but my favourite food is biscuits. It's terrible.
Honest.
I can eat a whole packet with a cup of tea. The problem is trying to find them without palm oil, which is a little bit trickier. So I've gotten into baking my own biscuits, which is the easiest thing in the world. So many biscuits are inadvertently vegan anyway, because they don't contain butter or eggs. They just often contain oil. So it's quite easy to find a vegan biscuit, and probably my second favourite would be a good vegan burger. Hence my beautiful vegan burger and background image today.
I would just say I actually really like the Beyond Beef burgers, all those kind of, I don't know what you would call them, fake meaty ones. I actually quite enjoy them. I think they're easy, and yeah, kind of remind me of a cheeseburger, and I like them. The kids like them as well. Made cheeseburger pizzas last night. They were delicious.
I think for anyone who, especially if you're making a burger for a meat eater, and you want them to get on board, a Beyond Burger, according to meat eaters, is pretty close to meat. How they've achieved that with plants, I'm not quite sure, but it's an amazing alternative, isn't it? And the Beyond Burger. So if you haven't tried it, please do. They've got a deal on Grab One at the moment, so
yeah. You guys are on your second round, aren't you, of the Grab One?
Yes. So our the Christchurch Safe staff have all stocked up and gone in on multiple orders of Beyond Burgers, and our freezers are very, very full at the moment. So someone's just asked a question: has anyone heard of spaghetti squash? Tom, if anyone knows what it is, it must be you.
Yeah, we just come in season about probably about a month ago. It's like a yellow squash looking thing. You roast it face down, cut it in half, scoop the seeds out, roast it face down, and then the flesh is spaghetti like. It kind of comes off in long strands. It's really creamy. Yeah, it's good. You can we have a recipe where we roast it and then fill it with a bean mixture, a Mexican spice bean mixture, top it with a cashew, cream cheese, hot sauce, and it's called a squash burrito bowl.
Oh, that sounds absolutely amazing.
Yeah, they're growing. They're pretty easy to grow as well. I had some in the garden last year.
Well, there you go. You learn something new every day. I have another question while we're talking to you, Tom, because the picture of you that we used for the event page,
yes,
you're making gnocchi, and everyone wants to know how to make gnocchi, because it's very easy to get it wrong and turn it into something very
I think the rules are kind of the same for making vegan gnocchi or making regular gnocchi, really. You want to try and dry out the potatoes as much as possible. So you want to bake the potatoes. You do it on salt if you're getting really fancy on a bit of salt, because you want to get all the moisture out of them. That way they can absorb more flour, so they have that more elastic feel. Because if you try and boil them, they soak up all the water. Then when you mash them, they're already waterlogged. So you want to bake them, cut them open, let as much steam out as possible. Then still mash them when they're hot, and then so traditionally you put eggs in them. And replace the eggs, what works really well is actually just a bit of cornstarch, corn flour, kind of helps them bind in regular flour, and then you just have to bring it all together like making a pasta dough. It is a little bit fiddly, but yeah, it's pretty much the same technique as making traditional gnocchi.
Good to know. Good to know. And I'm sure I'm going to nail it one day and get it just right. But I might try your tips.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just checking to make sure that we've answered all of the questions that have been coming in, and I think that we have. But we've probably got time for one last thing. Is there anybody that wants to talk about a particular topic before we wrap everything up? Now would be a good time.
Not a particular topic, but another great resource is a Guide to Vegan Facebook page, and I think they're on Instagram as well. And they do somewhat of a catalog of all things that are vegan in your local supermarkets and eateries as well across the country. So that's pretty handy. It's
amazing, and it's all New Zealand products as well, isn't it? And they're really good at covering new vegan products as soon as they come out. Very useful, a guide to vegan. Thank you for that, Mordecai.
Something I was going to mention was being a vegan parent. I guess with Jake and my other son Lee being life vegans, sometimes you get a bit of criticism from other adults, thinking that, you're not, you're doing your children a disservice and, they're not getting everything they need. So, like for us, like we felt pretty confident, but we thought, well, we may as well just get some blood tests done anyway. So, from time to time, we've had blood tests done, and for ultramarathon running, some events I do, I get bloods taken and tested beforehand. So, if people are uncertain or worried, or you don't know that you don't know you're necessarily getting everything you need. Sometimes if you have these tests, or you believe you are, but actually to get the tests done and actually see on paper, this is my iron level, that in black and white, it's not questionable. You're just, so there's nothing wrong with taking supplements if you want to take supplements, nothing wrong with getting tests done to check your B12 levels. And then sometimes when people do criticize you, you can say, well, you don't need, and people come from a place of love, they're concerned about your welfare, about your children's welfare. So it's not that they're necessarily having a go, but rather than being really defensive, then I can say, okay, well, our last blood tests were on this particular date and this is my iron level. And, so without trying to start a conflict, you can reassure people, family members, parents, grandparents, that your children are getting everything that they need.
And sport shows that, like, you're getting everything that you need because you can run faster than the other kids.
Yeah, I mean, like from the sports side of it, Jake and I have been pretty successful in what we've done, and Jake especially. So there's no denying that children can't flourish being vegan all their lives.
Absolutely. And what Tom just said about Game Changers, that's a wonderful movie. It's on Netflix, isn't it? If you're interested in sport and nutrition and all that kind of thing, Game Changers is brilliant. And also What the Health, if you're interested in the health side of plant-based eating, What the Health is also on Netflix, and it's brilliant, very educational. A couple of my friends turned vegan after watching it, so I think it's
and
quite
Dominion if you're interested in the animals. No, don't watch that.
Yeah. What was that?
Watch Dominion if you want to go vegan for the animals.
Not for the faint-hearted.
No.
I'm a little bit too sensitive to watch it, but I've watched the trailer and that was enough for me. But very educational if you want really good, solid reasons to go plant-based for the animals. Dominion is a great watch. Well, it's bang on 7:30, and so I think we've covered everybody's questions and then some, and we've learnt a lot. I've learnt a lot. It's been absolutely fantastic having you all here to answer everybody's questions. You'll be able to go back and watch this event again. We will post all the relevant links to the things we've been discussing in the event page, and And I think that wraps us up for our very first plant-based panel. We may have to do it again sometime.
Thanks, Laura.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
And you all have a great
Yeah.
evening. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.